I will see you all tomorrow night.
Boom, boom. There's Karen Kelly, who was just here for a workout. All right, I'm going to give it a minute because it's so nice to see people. So I do not need that open. Okay, only 8. I'm going to give it a couple minutes still. Maybe 2 more minutes. Okay. January. All these people I already know in here. I got good training stuff. I think it'll be a lot of nice wrap up and uh, review for all of my girls that are already in Look Like You Train, and then it'll be really valuable for anybody who it's going to be new to. Whoops. Okay, hang on 1 second. I think we're good. Okay, so no, we're not. That is going to distract me. All right, I still got a lot of people that are jumping in here, so I'm just gonna wait. So be patient with me for a minute. It's just constant still. Yeah. Where's everybody coming in from? We had probably the most snow that I have seen here, well, in my life, in many years. One, because last year was our first year back. We had 3 prior winters in Florida. And then last year, we didn't have really much of any snow. And then this year, we got freaking slaughtered this week. So, all Florida. I miss Florida. Edmonton. We got a lot of clients. I got a lot of people over there in Alberta. You guys, I can't really complain because Alberta gets it the worst. Mexico, Colorado, New York, Fairbanks, Alaska. Wow. My parents went to Alaska on their second honeymoon. Florida, New Jersey. New Jersey's like Hamilton. That's kind of like we always say like New York City's kind of compared to Toronto, and then New Jersey's kind of like Hamilton. That's where I grew up. So kind of just outside of that similar type of place. Ohio. So a lot of winter sufferers here. All right. Oh, there's my ex-wife coming in right now. Okay. All right. So it feels more natural that like Amy would have been the one to kind of start off this 3-day workshop that we're doing, since she tends to be more the natural face for us. But as it is, I'm doing day one since it's training, so I get to enjoy talking some training with everybody. Um, oh, hold on. Hope I didn't start too soon. So, anyways, welcome to what we've called the 3-day midlife. Oh, it's gonna escape me even now because we changed it. Midlife Body You Want. I thought that was a kind of a good name because I believe pretty concretely that the way we approach training, nutrition, lifestyle is the best way to make progress when progress is more difficult at this point in your life. Just is. So I'm not saying anything like a dream body or a 22-year-old body, but for the most part, what people are in terms of who we've spoken to over the years and who we're writing to, training is a really central part of things. So there's a component of that outcome that's always going to be related to training, whether it's a lot of muscle or a little bit of muscle. But at this point in time, this is the best way to approach that. So day one is going to be in the gym where I'm just going to be able to talk training, which is probably what I enjoy talking about the most. And then Amy's going to do day two tomorrow, which is in the kitchen. I know she's coming heavily prepared for that. I got a glimpse of it today. And then I'll be back on day three to do under your hood, which is really just metabolism stuff, hormones, kind of the environment that your body is in when you decide if you want to try to lose fat or not. So welcome to day one. So I thought I would start this off by saying, or by answering kind of the question of like, how did I, at this point, get to be a person who helps women like you? So backstory, does anybody remember Hydroxycut way back in the day? So everyone's probably grown up uh, in fitness to some degree or have been aware about muscle tech back in the day. So I started coaching online back in 2004. So I've been doing online coaching for this is 21 years now. Amy's not too far behind me. And but before that, after university, I worked for Muscle Tech, and I was the person who wrote all of the nutrition and training programs for the hydroxycut athletes. So when you saw the before and after athletes and people in the magazines or on the commercials, my job at the company was to design their training programs and write their nutrition programs and essentially do what I ended up leaving that company to do on my own, which was coach one-on-one from a distance. So that's actually where LBC was born. And then when I got into it in the online space, you can understand working for Muscle Tech, I was into kind of the bodybuilding world and the look like you train muscle building kind of space. And online, when I was coaching early, I ended up working with kind of the Oxygen magazine type of person and competitors. So people that wanted to look like they work out, gravitated a lot to female competitors, and that industry really exploded when the new divisions outside of female bodybuilding came in, which was figure, fitness, and bikini. And this attracted way more competitors, but you still had bodybuilding coaches preparing these women for a less extreme outcome, the same way they would prepare a woman for a more extreme outcome. And what also happened then at the same time was an explosion of all these post-diet rebounds, these metabolic rebounds, I called them back in the day. And a metabolic rebound was a disproportionate amount of weight gain relative to the amount of food you're eating. So a person would be no longer dieting, and they would then start eating a more normal amount of food, but have a really unusual amount of weight gain. The reason why this ended up being a natural progression into this space is because a person no longer being interested in working with competitors as I got older, so did our following. So they weren't competing either. So they ran in, they're just kind of in the same age space. But the interesting thing is that an over dieted person, a competitor or non, but specifically a competitor, has the same metabolic environment and hormonal issues as a person going through perimenopause. It's a lot of metabolic stress. There's a lot of stress reactivity. One is natural as you move towards the end of your reproductive life cycle, and one is really unnatural and kind of inflicted by a diet cycle, right? So the solutions for that, which I was one of the first really to start writing a lot about metabolism issues and post-dieting stuff, and had a reputation for working with a lot of these competitors after the fact that were damaged was the term we used back in the day before we knew better. Metabolic damage was the original term. And so those solutions apply to the same uh, issues that somebody would see now in an over 40 situation or a perimenopausal situation. So, by the way, if there's anything that pops up question wise as I go through this, I'm not going to stop to read because that's why I always look over here at a bigger screen. I don't want to squint and get distracted, but I'll circle back at the end and answer anything training related or anything really that pops up about this. So, anyways, because I get distracted, just like I did just get distracted. Um, okay, so the environments are basically the same. So the solutions are similar, and that's essentially where I came to be where I am right now, working with the same type of problem solution set, just with a different population. And the complexity of it for a lot of people is that for people who are into fitness and into the gym and into working out, at this point in life, it's very few people's first time through a fat loss or a diet cycle or a weight loss effort. So pretty much everyone has some degree of diet history or fat loss efforts. And a lot of times it's cumulative. And there's rarely a situation where a person has offset that repetitious dieting history with intentionally trying to undo that by eating more, for example. That's something we'll talk about more on day 3. But so problem solution is the same. So we're going to talk training this time on this day. I have a bunch of slides to keep me focused. They're pretty information heavy, sort of. But honestly, the application of what I'm saying in these slides and what I'm talking about is really straightforward, super easy to apply, and really effective. So I'm going to uh, talk about the common mistakes that I see a lot of people, not just women over 40, but just people in general, a lot of the mistakes people make in the gym that compromise progress in the gym. Muscle growth, strength, physique changes, these aren't really things that are not well studied. So there's so much science and so much like training research is such a humongous field. The more you know, the more you realize you don't know. So actually, let me just do my share screen here to bring this over. This will just keep me focused. So, anyways, let's just get right into it. So in the gym, how to train for muscle strength and longevity in your 40s and plus and beyond. So this is the big problem. So what I like is that with social media, there's been an explosion of information. There's good and bad about this for me. So now, because of all of the great information out there, it's no surprise to anybody when you're told weight training is good for you. You should be weight training. You should be resistance training. It's good for you. It keeps your muscles strong. It's good for your bones. It's good for everything that we're told it's good for. That's true. But what we're not told and what people don't say or understand is that not all training is created equal. Just because you're weight training or going to the gym and working out does not mean you are optimizing that process, does not mean you're making any progress. You can go to the gym every day and make literally no gains, no progress whatsoever. So the problem is you have then a lot of the information that is generally correct, and a lot of people are saying a lot of the same things, but not everyone is an expert in different areas, right? So not all training is created equal. We all accept that lifting weights is essential, but it can be done a lot more productively for the time you're spending into it. So here's the stat I found. Up to 8% of muscle loss per year, per decade, if you do nothing. This is kind of what happens if you're not training. So again, if you are doing some degree of training, you're already ahead of the game because most people aren't. So that's check mark. But if you're going to devote time uh, to the gym, then it just makes sense to do it in an optimal fashion. Plus, the honest truth is that you're fighting against a natural process that accelerates anyways. So why not fight it in an optimal way than kind of a casual way when there is an optimal way or a better way? So strength declines at 2 to 4% per year after the age of 50. So you're in an environment where your body, one, prefers more body fat, two, prefers less muscle mass. And if you look at this over time, there's just that natural decline in people's activities of daily living in terms of functionality, their strength. They become frail, weak, small. You fall, fracture a hip, you're dead in a year, right? Like these are like some of the funny stats. They're not funny, I mean, but that's an actual stat in terms of post fracture. There's a lot of risk for a person, for a woman after that. So signs your training isn't effective. I'm assuming most people are training, maybe not consistently, but most people have some degree of training background here, right? There might be some beginners, but not most people. If you're not getting stronger over time, your training is not working. Like that's the whole measuring stick of whether your training is producing an outcome. Again, I'll make a distinction. There's a difference between working out and exercising, which is good for you. It's better than not doing that. It's good as a daily part of your lifestyle or whatever, a weekly, however you frame it. But it's not the same as training. Training is much more intentional. It is very objective and outcome based. There's a set of parameters that are used to produce an outcome that you're expected to have over time on the other side of it. That's training. So there's more focus, there's more intention, there's more structure. They're two totally different things. So if you are just going to the gym to lift weights and everything is changing all the time, this is working out. It's 100% right off the bat without programming suboptimal. So you have to be getting stronger over time, as progressive overload, which we'll talk about, is proof that your program is working. That's the proof. You're getting stronger. And I will say, from a mindset standpoint, as a side topic, I didn't intend to side veer on this. You really want to make sure you see the gym, and I think maybe I do have it in here. You really want to make sure you see the gym not as a place to burn calories, to sweat, to lose fat, to, get in shape. That's not what the gym is ideally for. That's what the other 23 hours of the day are for. The gym should be about building muscle, building strength, supporting your metabolism, maintaining bone health as much as possible, because these are the things that are actively working against you anyways, even through physique goals that we still would have, right? So there's more drivers towards training properly for just health reasons and longevity reasons. But, our tagline is look like you train. So there's still an aesthetics component that drives a lot of us, right? So not getting stronger over time, feeling tired, not progressing, which is still the same thing, not making any strength gains. Gym feels hard, but results are minimal. All comes back to the yardstick of strength gains. The six biggest training mistakes women over 40 make. Okay. One, too many reps, too many sets, too much wasted time, too much junk volume. Not, there's just overall too much working out. And that ultimately ties into a lot of the other mistakes, because you can't be doing an appropriate loading with high reps or short rest intervals. So muscle growth is driven by effective reps. Effective reps are essentially the last 5 reps before form failure. So if you are doing an incline dumbbell press and you could do 30-pound dumbbells for 10 reps, 5 to 10 are the reps that matter. That's it. The warm-ups don't matter. They have a purpose, which is to warm you up, but they don't matter. They're not contributing to any progress or stimulating any adaptations. It's ultimately those last 5 reps. So whether it's a set of 6 or a set of 15, it's still the last 5 reps that matter. It's not the rep number, it's the proximity to failure. So those are effective reps. These are the reps when you start to experience more difficulty, right? There's an involuntary slowing down of the push or the pull or the hard part of the rep. So sets of kind of lightweight, high rep work, uh, not effective. Tied to that, you often see these two to go together is your rest intervals are just too short, and then weight training becomes cardio with weights. I've seen memes out there where it's like, I don't know what it was, but it's like a cardio with weights. I just lift weights faster or something like that. And these are these metabolic workouts. Now, here's the thing. There's a season and time for this. If a person is pretty stable, asymptomatic, not dealing with recovery issues, significant perimenopausal symptoms, stubborn fat loss, and they're not eating in a calorie deficit, there's a time and place. So when I'm talking about things, I'm talking about a specific kind of block of time or goal. But if a person is in a maintenance lifestyle and they are eating sufficient calories and therefore reducing a massive part of what stresses an old, I want to say older, a midlife and up body, then you can do things like intervals and more metabolic based workouts because they're not being done in an energy deprived environment, so they don't have the same consequences. So time and place, seasons. Research supports that 2 to 3 minutes of rest is optimal for muscle growth. So for a lot of people, when they first start doing this feels like you're doing nothing. And then I would say, then you're not training hard enough if you don't feel you need the rest. Once you learn how to train hard, which is something learned, right? You learn how to experience uh, maintain good form, the harder and especially with lower body training, and realize how far you can push past what feels like initial discomfort. It's just a learned thing. Beginners don't have it, more experienced people do have it. But ultimately, you see a lot of short rest interval training, and sometimes this comes from that mindset of burning calories in the gym, right? But that's not, again, what the gym's for. So 2 to 3 minutes of rest is optimal for muscle growth and strength. This is between hard sets, work sets, not between warm-up sets. And I'll show you at the end how this kind of all wraps together when I just kind of put it in a kind of a principle-based page, and then you'll have the sample look like you train workouts to look at. So many women see the gym, I did say it here, as a place to burn calories, sweat, and get in shape rather than a place to build strength and muscle, missing the real benefits of effective training and the really important ones, never mind. Not only the effective benefits in terms of what people are training in the gym often for, someone who's doing a lot of reps and short rest interval training is not training for bone health and strength, right? They're typically training for fat loss. So that's not the benefit, and that's not even the real requirement and need. And not to mention, for what most people are wanting to look like, a version, let's say, of looking like you work out, muscle is a part of that. Strength is a part of that. That's how people get there that probably look the way you would like to look. So no structured progressive overload, no plan for progressive overload. So remember I said that proof that your training is working, proof that your body is adapting in a positive way, evidence is fully from progressive overload, which also means you need to be tracking your workouts to know if that's even possible. So if there's no structure for progressive overload, then your training isn't working, period. If you are lifting the same weights right now as you were last year, you've made no progress. There's no adaptation. There's no reason to change. You have to be driving for this progress. And as I said here, most aren't even logging the workouts, whether that be on paper. We use an app in Look Like You Train, but if you're not logging your workouts, you're not even aware of anything. So you're basically going on memory. It's just not a training approach. It's really a casual approach to wanting to make progress. Because ultimately, if you're tracking your progress, if we have specific parameters, for example, in Look Like You Train, I had everybody doing 6 reps as their top sets. This week it's 5 reps, right? So if they didn't know what they did for 6 reps last week, they wouldn't even have a mental target for when to adjust loads, so on and so forth. Having a have to beat last week's type of mindset, so you're competing against yourself, you're actively engaged in trying to make progress. And then your training logbook becomes data-driven proof that you are making progress, that your body is positively adapting. As the reason why this is important in the context of this over 40 more prone to recovery issues female is that when your body is getting stronger, you are positively adapting. You can only be so metabolically stressed in that situation, not vary if you're in a positive adaptation place. And less of it implies you're in a less of a defensive metabolic state. So it is a good indicator that you're trending in the right direction. So not training heavy enough or close enough to failure. So the reason why, again, you can build muscle anywhere from 5 to 30 reps. It just makes more sense to use lower reps, which we'll get into from a stimulus and fatigue standpoint. But training works when you apply really high tension to your muscles, lots of tension, right? So this is the idea behind one, heavy weights, two, proximity to failure. Proximity to failure is going to be, like I said earlier, 5 reps or so, 5 reps really before failure. And you can tell this because that's when, like I said, it starts to become the movement of that load is slowing down a little bit. This is the tension you're after, and that is going to be something that increases more and more as you get to failure. So these are the only reps that matter. If your work sets are ending several reps before failure, and again, this is something you learn as you just train more over time, then you're really not creating any adaptation. They're basically like submaximal sets. They're like warm-up sets. So if we're doing 4 sets for a given exercise, this is my overall protocol is we'll do 10 reps with a given weight, and then we'll rest, and then we'll go up to 6 reps with a heavier weight to continue the warm up. Then we'll take a longer rest. And these 2 sets don't matter. So these 2 sets, even the loads don't even have to be progressed. They don't even matter. They're just warm ups. They're not stimulating anything. So the next set is a really hard set. This is a really main set. And then the next set, if we're doing another work set, is a longer rest interval, another hard set. So those are the money making sets and money making reps. So if you're in your work set, when you're training, if you can remember to just turn the money on, so to speak, as the set gets hard, that's when your form becomes the most important. That's when the tension is highest on the target muscles. That's when everything that you're there for is happening. What you naturally see is people, what? Loosen up their form because your body is naturally trying to make the exercise easier. And now you're moving the weight still and completing the set, but you're no longer experiencing the same level of tension you were when your form was tight. So I teach my kids all the time because 2 of them train with me and 2 of them train with Amy. As soon as the set starts to get hard, that's when you're mentally saying, now the set starts. That first somewhat challenging rep is rep 1. And this is when you are all about effort, all about mechanics and execution, and all about um, taking those reps as close to failure with as best form as possible. Okay. So training near failure is basically 1 to 2 reps short of failure, which is what RIR represents, reps in reserve. I meant to ask that if anybody knew what that meant, but I just forgot. So this ensures full motor recruitment. That just means that all of your muscles are being used when you're training near failure. So one, it's heavy weights. We can see kind of by what I'm saying not to do where this is going. Too many reps, lots of junk volume. So don't do too many reps. Don't do a lot of extra volume. Rest longer, have some structure for progressive overload, train heavy, and make sure you're training close to failure. So it's already kind of taking shape. Too much training, not enough recovery. So better recovery, better results. If you are not recovered from the last workout, you'll have no positive adaptation at the next workout. If you did, again, have positive changes as evidenced by being a little bit stronger, whether that be even just an extra rep, then you recovered from your last workout. If you are still sore from a prior workout in a muscle group, let's say your glutes are still sore, you shouldn't be doing glutes again. There's just no point. There's zero benefit to training a muscle that is still sore because it's not recovered yet. So it hasn't even gone through the recovery positive adaptation curve yet, and you're just kind of digging deeper into that recovery debt. So women over 40 need extra focus on recovery due to higher stress in their bodies and hormonal shifts. Recovery comes at a premium. Lower recovery capacity means smarter programming. So too much training, not enough recovery. You really have to see the recovery component uh, honestly almost as equal as you do see the training component. People will kind of step over everything to get workouts in, get up early to do cardio, get up early to not miss a workout, not realizing that sometimes if you took that extra time for the rest and recovery or the sleep, you'd probably make more progress because the bottleneck is just the wound up body, the overstressed system. So restorative and R&R, rest and recovery workouts, they really, really matter. Not following an actual program and changing workouts too often. This is the fundamental difference between working out and training. People who are in a workout headspace, they need to be entertained. They need to be kind of like not, can't get bored in the gym. They're not motivated by the appropriate mindset for long-term results. If you look at this from an athlete's mindset, they understand it's all about repetition through a process, not randomness. And the person who has not graduated from exercise to training is really kind of stimulated by variety and randomness. They're the person that wants to change their workouts all the time, or they get bored of exercises or things like that. The problem with this is you can't track any progressive overload if you're always changing your movements. How do you know what you're doing is working? You have no idea. And the only metric is progressive overload. It's the clear cut and dry evidence. So you need to give yourself an opportunity to be able to see if that's even happening. So if you're not getting stronger in a movement through a standardized protocol, you really have no idea if you are making any progress, and therefore you can't troubleshoot something that may or may not be working. So the purpose of training is not to entertain or prevent boredom, it's to produce results. So you need to understand that it's repetition through time that is going to produce results. There are really I used to say, there are no best exercises, just, good programming or something like that. I now believe that there are better exercises than others. There are higher tension exercises. There are more appropriate exercises for a given task than I would have thought otherwise. So if you don't have a structured program, what is your actual plan for progress, especially when you're fighting an uphill battle right now in the gym? So I firmly believe there's an optimal way to do this. I'm not saying, of course, that the way I wrap up workouts is the only way, but the principles are based on all of the research, all of the science, and then there's just everyone's application of what that looks like. So showing up and working out hard isn't enough. It's healthy to do that, but it's not going to change your body. Why this matters even more for women over 40. So we'll talk a little bit more about this on Thursday when we talk about metabolism and the under your hood type of the under your hood conversation. But one, you have natural hormonal shifts that change how your body responds. It's a completely different physiological environment, and there's uh, every single hormone in your body is connected. So if one thing is changing, there's a downstream effect on all these other systems as well. So you obviously have declining sex hormones. This is going to make your body naturally more stress reactive. Progesterone and estrogen, when these are balanced hormones for you, they act as a buffer against high stress. So you can be experiencing high challenges to your physiology in a stress sense and have good defense if you have healthy levels of progesterone and estrogen. The telltale sign of perimenopause is when this progesterone level starts to drop and these two hormones on balance, and you lose the buffer, the defense against the effects of chronic stress in your body. The telltale sign is more belly fat, right? So it doesn't necessarily tie into a large amount of weight gain, although you still can gain weight. You're more predisposed to weight gain in perimenopause, but it definitely affects the distribution of where you would retain or gain or hold fat for sure. And that is 100% because progesterone has dropped, unassociated with estrogen in terms of that balance or that stability. And now you're exposed to the effects of stress. And that is proof that your system is under stress. And when I say everything is connected, then you have the impact that that has on blood sugar regulation and insulin, on thyroid, on all these other systems because everything is connected. So this makes recovery more at a premium. It's one of the reasons why it's harder to recover. It's more difficult to retain muscle mass. That's one of the reasons why you're fighting against it. It's just a natural hormone shift. It's not to say that you can't make some really awesome progress, but you do have to acknowledge it's not like it was when you were younger and you could get away with things. A lot of people make great progress, not because of what they do, in spite of what they do. And the worst thing I think that can happen to someone is get what they think is the right results, doing it in a completely asinine way that results in consequences down the road, unknowingly or not, right? That's the worst thing that can happen. So ultimately, it's an obstacle, but if you have everything kind of dialed in, and it's really not that challenging to have everything dialed in, as usual, nutrition is always the hardest thing, right? But from an overall adjust how I see fitness kind of standpoint, especially from a training standpoint, they're not difficult adjustments to make. So cortisol sensitivity increases. So this the sensitivity, something that would have been received in your body as a 4 on a 1 to 10 scale, your body now feels as a 7. You're just more reactive to these things. So training can contribute to this, whether that be the wrong types of training, high intensity type of interval, metabolic, CrossFit, boot camp, F45 type workouts can really backfire, leading to more of that kind of localized fat redistribution, if not get all out gain, and potentially muscle loss too, because this person is probably typically doing this in an under eating environment too. Metabolism adapts to what you give it. So years of chronic dieting and excessive cardio, your body is primed for fat storage, not muscle growth. This is a situation where it's a little bit more uphill. The more colorful your dieting history, usually the more symptomatic someone's 40s are, perimenopause is, because you have the same things happening. You're actually coming in with pretty much a perimenopausal environment uh, as you enter perimenopause and having kind of a double whammy in the same systems. So your body is just more inclined to prefer to gain fat and resist losing it. Doesn't mean it's impossible, means you have to be serious. Smart training shifts this back in your favor because if you're adding more muscle mass and saving your muscle and using your muscle in a healthy, productive, stimulating way, then you're going to have better metabolic flexibility, which is basically your body's ability to shift between fuel sources based on the activity and demand, which is something you lose, right? When you're in an over-dieted state. So your body can naturally and comfortably shift back between carbohydrates and fats based on what you're doing. Metabolic resilience means that you are more resistant to the red flags that you see when you start dieting, the biofeedback, the kind of hormone changes and the down regulations that happen with dieting. You're more resilient to that. You resist it longer. Muscle and bone density, non-negotiables, obviously. This is a good driver. Estrogen decline equals a higher risk for osteoporosis. Most people know this already. Joint pain, muscle loss. Strength training with heavy progressive loads is the only way to fight this. If you are coming from zero, like I said earlier, you're going to have a benefit just from going from nothing to training. But at some point, that just kind of caps, and then you're still fighting the progressive loss. So you know that if you are actually, and I'll say this actually, and I'm getting ahead of myself, but if you are getting stronger, despite what the stats say about strength and muscle loss, you are not losing any muscle. You cannot lose any, I mean, any muscle and get stronger at the same time. So you're an outlier just at that point, which is why it's so important to track and to have a structured program around how to do this. Because otherwise you're kind of guessing. It's just kind of gambling when there's a way and there's so much known about how to train for progressive overload, how to train for strength, how to train for muscle, so on and so forth. So when I talk about all this training stuff and how to optimally train, I'm really not even talking about an over 40 women. I'm talking about what's known about training right now in the literature, up to date in terms of how to optimize building muscle and strength. That's what I'm talking about. It just so happens that it really coincides nicely with the restrictions that an over 40, 50-year-old woman would have from a recovery and fatigue management standpoint, because we learn that you don't need all of this volume. You don't need all of these things. There's a lot of things that we thought contribute to muscle growth, like soreness, muscle damage, metabolic stress. These things don't contribute. They were all hardwired into the belief system and even taught that there were three contributors to muscle growth: mechanical tension, muscle damage, and metabolic stress, right? Two of them have been erased. They're not even considered anymore. So, um, okay, let's keep going. The wrong training approach makes everything worse, right? So if you're already on a slide and you're training in a way that is not conducive to what you need training to be for you, then this just makes everything worse. There's already a high kind of cost, metabolic cost of training. And then if you're doing too much volume, circuit training, boot camps, classes, just having a calorie burning mindset, which is usually associated with more, 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 These just drain you. They don't produce any results. And in an overly stressed body already, I don't even like to say overly stressed, it's just more that your body is more stress reactive. And therefore, you just have to respect that. Your body needs more recovery to respond. It's just more defensive. And there's a lot of variability person to person on this because it depends also on what your kind of base lifestyle is, what you do now, what your dieting history is a huge one. Um, so the goal in the gym is to stimulate, not annihilate. Train with purpose, take your recovery really seriously. No one does. Log your workouts, try to get stronger. This is how you get your metabolism working with you, not against you. Okay, the science of strength and muscle growth for women. One, like I said just a minute ago, mechanical tension is the only driver of muscle growth. All that means is tension. It's those reps that you feel, right? So if you're doing 10, if you're doing 15 reps, the first X reps, you don't even feel them. They're easy. And then all of a sudden it gets really hard, right? That's tension. That is the sensation. I don't even want to use that because then it can confuse people into thinking that if you don't feel the right sensation on an exercise, then it's not, the right muscle, you're not doing it right, which isn't necessarily true. That can distract you. But ultimately, the tension is those last 5 reps. This is the driver of muscle growth, the only driver of muscle growth. So it's not that progressive overload drives muscle growth. It proves that you're headed in that direction and that your body is responding to that tension, those last 5 reps, right? Muscle grows from force, not fatigue, burn, pump, nothing. The last 5 reps before failure create the largest muscle growth triggers due to full muscle recruitment. So all of the muscle fibers are recruited at that point. Heavy loads, I should really say 1 to 2 reps in reserve. So that just means, 1 to 2 reps short of what you couldn't do anymore. I would really say form failure. So it's not when you can loosen your form and keep getting a few more reps. It's really 1 to 2 reps uh, short of form failure. When you start to break down, you're losing the point of your set, which was to smash that muscle, not just do 10 reps. So you get full fiber activation with really heavy weight, heavy loads, with less wasted effort. You can get this with sets of 15 or 17 or whatever, but that's just a wasted effort to get there. Um, if you don't challenge your muscles, they don't adapt. We know this. Train hard but smart. So minimize unnecessary muscle damage. So soreness, when I mean, is what I mean when I say that, and CNS fatigue, which just means nervous system fatigue, right? So just the command center that's managing every workout. So if you're going to failure, for example, too often, you will wreck recovery. You won't be able to recover from this. The sweet spot has always been 1 rep short of failure. And as your training experience grows, and you'll know this for yourself if you're experienced, you kind of just learn that. You just know when that is. And the next rep, I'm getting half a rep. So you don't do it, you just drop it. Anywhere from that to 2 reps is really the sweet spot on hard sets, on work sets. And it differentiate, as you'll see in the LLYT samples, between warm-up sets and work sets. So this lets you train hard more often. You have more stimulus over time, more growth. So you're not having unnecessary damage from doing too many sets to failure, too much volume, so on and so forth. And again, to reiterate, if you're getting stronger, you are not losing any muscle. So you are defying everything that's supposed to be happening. And as long as that's happening, you 100% have nothing to worry about in terms of muscle loss, right? So check mark on that one. Um, Also, though, if your goal is to develop muscle and is to add more muscle, if you're not getting stronger, that's not happening. So it's just simply not happening. No bigger muscle is not a stronger muscle. So you have to be tracking it intentionally, uh, framing your workouts around progressive overload, having a plan and a structure to doing so. It's fun to get stronger. Ask anyone here who's gonna look like you train. I mean, these last 2 rounds, especially, everyone's kind of erupted with strength. So, it's kind of fun once you're seeing that and you see the proof. There's no kind of ambiguity on if you're making progress because the logbook says so, and you're getting stronger. And that fundamentally means that your body is moving in the right direction and adapting positively. So the wrong training approach can make everything worse. If you're not training for muscle and recovery, I think you're training for fatigue, because that typically means a person's just doing too much and in a calorie burning mindset. At some point, your body's going to fight back on that. Here's the other issue with adopting and unlearning. Some of this acceptance is unlearning what you have seen success with in the past. I've always called this, and I don't know if what the term is for it, but I've always called it the psychology of success. And you associate something that works with your experience of it working, and it's always going to pull you back to that potentially. You just got to realize that the hormonal and metabolic environment now is different. So it's just not the same. Okay, but I like doing it. I don't think this is a good enough reason. I like doing this, I like doing that, da 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 da. I just don't think that's a good enough reason if you're in a place where you need to make some changes, or you want to make some progress, or your body's not responding, or you feel crappy, so on and so forth, right? You have fat to lose. I don't think that's a terrible reason for me. If you are in a different season where you've done all that, you're on the other side of it, you're more in a maintenance eating type of place, well fed, there's way more flexibility. There's more flexibility on cardio. There's more flexibility on cross training and different fitness things. But that's not when you have a goal of doing the things that you're working on when you're looking at fat loss or muscle building or metabolic repair or, losing weight. That's fat loss. So you can train however you want. I don't know why they put the circle in here. You can train however you want, but if you want real progress, there's just a better way to do it. Science doesn't really change, and optimal training is optimal training. And purpose over entertainment. Making progress is more fun than playing around in the gym, in my opinion. Recovery starts with programming, not just your sleep and nutrition. So a lot of times when we look at recovery, and again, progressive overload is going to indicate recovery as well. The first thing you should really look at is your workouts. We're talking about workouts. People will look at their food or their sleep. These are contributors, but you first have to look at the training variables, because you have to have something that you need to recover from, and the stimulus is the training. And then your sleep and nutrition help you recover from the training stimulus, right? So fatigue is dictated by your training. How you train, not just how well you recover. You can't recover better from bad programming. If a person is in a poor recovered state, recovery is at a premium, and the training is dumb, then there's no more sleep or food that fixes that bad programming. So you look at the training first. So there has to be something to recover from. The stress management starts with the program design. So you look at the workouts, and this is why you uh, everything really fits together nicely with an optimal way to train for muscle strength, bone health, metabolism, and the recovery needed by an over 40 training female. More fatigue, more training, more volume does not equal more gains. You can actually, the latest research shows one set to failure is enough to stimulate muscle. Training should leave you stimulated, not wrecked. This has to do also with just exercise selection when I talk about just best movements. So younger, I might have had an idea or a thought process around, less stable movements. But as I get older and I'm thinking of injury prevention, and I really still want to train to near failure because I have to, and I have to go heavy, I want a really stable exercise, which allows me to just focus on pushing, right? Positioning myself right in the movement. You'll see I'm really getting to a pro machine statement here. Um, I don't have to worry about stabilizing the exercise myself. My body doesn't have to share neural drive, which is like, just say, power resources between this weight I want to push and keeping myself balanced, stable, and safe. Instead, I'm on, say, a hack squat machine compared to a barbell squat, and I can just get in there, close my eyes, and grind, right? So those types of exercises that are more stable by choice are inherently, as hard as they are, less there's a lower perception of effort. If you are doing an unstable exercise, a more complicated movement, there could be less muscle tension, but the whole movement feels more difficult. So the purpose of training here is not to create fatigue. It's really to be super mindful of not creating fatigue, to stimulate, not wreck yourself, have a ton of localized muscle activation, and then have a low fatigue and therefore high recovery ability. So you can train that muscle more frequently, more often. Smart training variables matter most. Bottom line, they matter more than any type of recovery hack. If you're having a hard time, and when I say training, I would also say that it's everything. It's not just your gym time. Are you competing in a sport? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? Are you doing this? That's all part of your training. So you'd have to look there, not just to your workouts, but it's the cumulative stress load of the output that you have to look at first. The research is clear. What slows recovery most? High reps, slow recovery, more fatigue, greater metabolic stress, longer recovery, higher volume, slow recovery, longer length motion. So this is things like my girls will know, like step downs, they make your butt, your glutes really sore. This is a longer length motion that is stretched under load. RDLs would be another example. So any of these movements that you feel in the stretch, as opposed to a movement that you might feel in a contraction, like a hip thrust or a leg extension, right? These do not cause as much damage. They do not cause as much recovery issues. So if your programming and your exercise selection has too much stretch-based movements under load, you're going to get more sore. Some degree is okay, but too much soreness is just a progress interrupter because it's just delaying that process. You don't want to get, there's no advantage to getting sore. It doesn't have anything to do with whether you had a productive workout. It usually has to do with this or introducing something new and having some soreness from newness, right? New things make us sore, or in this case, longer length motion. So they're important, but you want to be mindful of how they're programmed because we know they just lengthen the recovery process. Short rest periods, no brainer. These are going to slow recovery. And too many sets to failure, they just burn you out. So 1 rep, 2 reps, short of failure, but a real failure. Most people have way more reps in the tank than they think. I mean, I have many examples of this with my kids where they're learning to train hard. One, through modeling and watching us, and then two, through my coaching, and they're pushing over time. So they can be there and think, okay, I'm doing X. The leg extension is a great example. Legs are a great example. They're doing 110 pounds she's going to go for 8 reps. I think of Lilani right now. And I'm like, let's do 120 and let's go for it. And she does 10 pounds more and 15 reps because there's more there, right? You just learn that there's more reps there. There's certain movements where it's not possible and failure is more clear. But a lot of times people just have to just learn to train through that discomfort, right? Up to the point where their form breaks down. And that's where all the rewards are as well. Hard training, targeted training, and really emphasize recovery. Rest periods matter. 2 to 3 minutes is the sweet spot. This is between work sets, hard sets, not between warm-ups. You need like a minute, minute and a half between warm-ups, 2 to 3 minutes, even more. If you're doing a big movement like a hack squat or a hard quad exercise, my rest intervals could be 3 plus 4 minutes because it's all about performance at that point. One, this is what is also interesting. The longer rest intervals means you need less volume to stimulate muscle growth. You need less sets to do so. And the reason for this is you have less interference from the prior set and the fatigue from that set, which reduces your body's ability to recruit the strongest muscle fibers because they're not recovered yet. So you need more sets to get the same training effect. The problem with this is one, it's obviously inefficient and takes more time. But two, we're also trying to be aware of the fatigue management side. It doesn't make sense to do all these extra sets that come with shorter rest intervals as a requirement to make progress because one, it's less efficient. Two, it's going to create more fatigue. That's more recovery. That's where I'm already weak, so on and so forth. So shorter rest intervals require higher volumes because of this interference effect. It compensates for the lack of recovery between sets. Nervous system balance. This is another thing. A lot of this is also about nervous system regulation. This stress reactive state is really characterized by being wound up, kind of sympathetically driven. It's just kind of an over cranked up nervous system. So when you're training in a stimulate, relax type of way, work sets are what, 30 seconds and you're resting for a long time. These support a rebalancing of that activation relaxation response in your nervous system, which you really need, because that's going to, as you'll see Thursday, really underwrite everything. Is if your body is in a defensive state, it doesn't matter what you're doing until you undo that state. So this is one side benefit that's lesser known about training properly with longer rest intervals, is it helps to support that reestablishment of that rhythm. And it obviously optimizes hard set performance. You can't do a hard set after a short rest interval and expect to be as strong, to get as many reps. There's just no way. You need long rest to have high force output. That means you get more mechanical tension, more growth stimulus, more muscle building potential. Heavy load, long rest. So less workout, less during workout fatigue, less post-workout fatigue, less unnecessary muscle damage, better tendon stiffness adaptation. So better for your tendons, for your joints over time. This is going to prevent injuries, create more resilience, and it's easier to progressively overload, which again, we come back to the main proof of progress if you are training heavy and resting longer. Strength training, some side things, strength training and metabolic health. So one, improved insulin sensitivity. This is connected to cortisol. If you have bad cortisol and high stress, your blood sugar is going to be all over the place. It's just a direct connection. So strength training is going to improve this. The more muscle you have, the better your glucose uptake. Bodybuilding and training properly is the ultimate diabetic prevention method, because 80% of your glucose, your sugar, is stored in your muscle. The less muscle you have, well, the less space you have for this stuff. Most adults become more of a pre-diabetic and slide that way. One, because the muscle health, the use of that muscle declines. They have less of it, and it's just not used in a way that has a lot of flux and activity. So this helps prevent insulin resistance, also energy crashes, prevents metabolic slowdown because you're maintaining lean body mass, your muscles being maintained by training properly. It's decreasing if you're not training. And muscle goes fast. You don't lose strength that fast because the adaptations are also neurological. But if you haven't trained for a month, you lose muscle very quickly, very quickly. You can regain it, of course, but muscle loss is naturally lost relatively quickly anyways. Now it's just more of an acceleration. Nobody can afford to lose muscle these days. Strength as a marker, it's a direct marker of your muscle retention. Again, track your workouts. See for yourself that you are getting stronger. It should make you feel good. That's not happening to you. It's literally not happening to you. I have proof in my logbook that I am not losing muscle, I'm not losing strength, so on and so forth. Long-term metabolic efficiency. The word really is inefficiency here. I should have put, because I still have people coming in. Inefficiency means that you get a lot of output for a calorie, which is really what you want to have if you're lean, if you want to be lean. You don't want to get a lot of output. You do want to get a lot of output. I'm sorry. You want to get a lot of output from your calories if you want to, for example, run endurance events, but you don't if you want to be lean. You want your body to kind of tear through calories, right? And that's really a fast metabolism. So lifting heavier progressively ensures muscles being lost, supports long-term metabolic efficiency. So it just creates a bigger engine for you. Bone density, we all know this one. It offsets bone loss. This is actively happening. And the great thing about heavy training, heavy loading in this appropriate rep range that we'll talk about, resting long, training hard, is that the tension that is applied extends from that muscle through that tendon into that bone, and there's a remodeling that happens there. So one, you're obviously offsetting bone loss. This is way more impactful than putting on a weighted vest and walking around with a weighted vest. I see these types of recommendations, and they're great if you're not training, right? They're a good introduction, but strength training, heavy strength training, loading your body, trying to get stronger is going to trump anything for offsetting bone loss, osteoporosis risk, so on and so forth. Stimulates bone modeling. Only heavy training stimulates bone remodeling through that tension in those hard reps. Strengthens connective tissues, prevents fractures. Um, Everybody knows somebody that's had a fall. Changed my mom's life, actually. and builds resilience. More than just muscle, strength training builds a more resilient body. You just have uh, more ease with the activities of daily living, right? Okay, how to structure your training. So this is a lot of information, but all comes down to this: how to structure your training. This is really the sheet. One, optimal training frequency is 3 to 4 days per week. More is totally unnecessary. You have no reason to train more than 3 to 4 days a week. And I would say then that you're underappreciating how powerful having extra recovery is at this point. Two, training split, if you're training 4 days a week, the ideal split is an upper lower split. If you're training 3 days a week, I would say it's probably a full body split at this point. I used to have think more push pull legs and so on and so forth. But over the years, I've always believed in a more uh, higher training frequency than a traditional body part split, just in the way that your body responds with protein synthesis and things like this. The reason why these splits are superior is because you have higher frequency of hitting those muscles. So it is better, for example, if you had 10 units of volume that you were splitting up for chest or shoulders. Um, no one here cares about chest, right? Glutes for the week. It would be, you'd get better results from doing 5 sets 2 times a week than you would 10 sets 1 time a week. And I could argue 3 sets 3 times a week might even be better than the 5 times 2. So this is why these types of splits are great. In Look Like You Train, this is how I have all the splits set up. I actually, this round, really like the 3 day split. It's 4 days, but over 4 workouts over 3 days that rotate. I just happen to prefer training 4 days a week. Otherwise, I would do that. So that's the way the split should be. No body part splits. Muscle frequency. This is tied to number two. You want to hit everything like twice a week. In some cases, you can do 3 times a week. If something's being prioritized or specialized or given a bit of emphasis for a little bit of time, but at least twice a week. Work sets. So this isn't all the sets. This is the work sets. 1 to 2 hard sets per exercise. That's it. 1 to 2. No extra jump volume. Training intensity. 1 to 2 reps short of form failure on all work sets. This is what maximizes recruitment of all of your strong muscle fibers. Exercise selection, 5 to 6 movements per workout. That's all you need. So think about what I'm saying. 5 to 6 movements, 1 to 2 hard sets per exercise, 1 to 2 reps, 1 to 2 reps from failure, 5 to 10 reps for efficiency. Higher reps work, but what's the point? They cause more fatigue for the same muscle building effect. Rest periods, 2 to 3 minutes on hard work sets, 60 to 90 seconds between warm-up sets. Makes sense, right? 3 to 4 days a week, train everything twice a week, 1 to 2 hard sets, 5 to 6 movements, 1 to 2 reps short of failure, 5 to 10 reps, 2 to 3 minutes between work sets. This is the foundation of how we program for results. So I am wrapping up now, and you can try it for yourself. So I have 3 different workouts from 3 different programs. So we've had Look Like You Train, which is our group programming. So I've been coaching, like I said, for 21 years. It's always been one-on-one coaching. And then when COVID happened, we started with this safe at home workout we gave out for free. It just was a workout. And then over these 5 years, Look Like You Train has really become our main thing, and much more than just workouts. But it's centered around the training. So we open that group 4 times a year, and there's a new program drop for each of those times. So these 3 workouts are from 3 of those prior programs. The 4 day program has 6 workouts. This last 3 day program has 4. So this isn't a program. It's a sample to kind of let you see how all these training principles come together, um, and to try them for yourself, right? You can just work out and see what a good, well-structured program would look like. If you're paying attention, you could probably even build out your own off of those workouts just from what you're learning here. So movement-wise, one thing I didn't put in here when I think about exercise selection, stability is one of these components you want to consider with training. And that's because it's one, like I said, uh, safer to push hard on and not worry about it. And two, it's just more efficient because your body doesn't even have to worry about stabilizing. So if you were doing like a split squat, for example, or a step down, if you know what that exercise is, these are like a unilateral single leg exercise. They're unstable for a lot of people. If you just put your hand on a post or a machine beside you, even a finger, suddenly that exercise is way more stable. Same exercise, you're not getting any help from your hand, but it's added stability. And all of a sudden, the perception of the movement overall is less, yet the muscle activation is very high. So you're looking to have stable exercises also. I didn't put that in here, but I should have. That's a big component as well, is just choosing exercises that allow you to train at that level of intensity, not get hurt, and be able to progressively overload over time. Next steps. So commit to tracking your training. If nothing else, just start logging your workouts. You can't improve what you're not tracking. Training without tracking is just guessing, and the data drives the results. It's just proof. Evaluate your program. If you have one, is it working? You can just look at your logbook, or even if you're not logging and you're just training, then are you getting stronger? Are you stronger than you were last year? Are you actively, consistently making gains? If you're an intermediate kind of trainee, which is most people, you should be making progressive overload jumps, every few workouts. If you're more towards the beginner intermediate, it should be pretty much weekly. And then if you're advanced, it's obviously less frequently, but still should be semi-regularly. That's how you evaluate your program. Are you doing too much, training too hard, getting stronger? Is it structured for progressive overload or just random workouts? If you don't have a program, that's kind of step one, right? So you have to understand that there's no kind of randomness about this. So stop working out, start training. This requires structure, sets, reps, exercises, tempos, rest periods. This is kind of all turnkey stuff that is part of designing a program. So if you think about how most people just casually approach the gym, they just work out and sometimes even decide what they're doing when they get there. And if you can appreciate just how much research and science goes into all these training variables, it only stands to reason that that is entirely suboptimal. And outside of someone who just happens to be a good responder, probably a poor use of time relative to learning how to train properly. It's your sport for life. Amy always uses this as an example, like tennis. You're not going out there and just assuming that you can just start getting out there and hitting forehands down the line, backhands, top spins, slice serves, right? There's a process to trying to get better. So even at the experience level, every time I'm in the gym, I'm still trying for perfect reps. I'm still trying to be as good as possible on my execution. I'm concentrated, right? You're in a training headspace. So number four, try the workouts, see how structured training works. Um, Log and track. I'm coming back to the logging and tracking because the most um, pervasive message to get across is the need for progressive overload and having programming that supports it. Don't be so casual about your recovery. This is just as important as your training. And then we have a new round if you end up wanting to just join us for the next round of programming that starts in 2 weeks. And I think we'll start talking about it right after this. These 3 days are kind of a promo for our group opening. So, and that's it. That's what I have for you. So I'm going to let me actually unshare this, and I'm going to put the link to the landing page that we had built for those 3 workouts. So it'll come in a document, a Google document, and watch the videos. The videos, a lot of times, I hear people say, "Oh, I don't have the time." You have the time to go do an hour workout. You have 5 minutes to watch a video on fast forward to get the most out of that workout. So I do walkthroughs for each of the workouts, because a lot of times the details matter. So you want to have a mindset that I'm trying to get better at this. I'm trying to get better at recruiting muscles and training, just like you would try to get better at anything that you were doing that was skill based, or that required use of your body, a sport, anything. and just, be open. People are coming in right now. How is this? We must have had they're on the wrong time, wrong time. Wrapping up for anybody who just got here. So, um, let me just put that link in here first. Watch the videos is my point. Okay. In the chat, I'm putting it. Okay. So drop your email in there. We'll do it. I'm getting in there. If you're here. Okay, let me see if there was. Anybody have any questions about anything that I put on here or talked about tonight? Okay. Um, I will. Where is the link to join or get on the list for the next session?
We open
Uh,
enrollment next week technically. But at the end of these 3 days, we're gonna have something early bird for those that
yeah.
come to this.
It's not letting me put the link in. I'm just gonna text it for you. You can drop it in the chat.
Okay.
What about when you can't move up in weight? The weight you're doing is not enough. Increase reps. What about when you can't move up in weight with the weight you're, oh yeah, right. So that case, a good example of this would be something like laterals, right? Where you're never going to be strong, but a jump from like 15 to 20 is like a lot. So yeah, and this is when you have an understanding of what matters. It's the proximity to failure. So it's not the reps. It's get the most out of the set, regardless of the reps. If you had overguessed the weight, for example, side point, then next set you adjust. If you had underguessed, you would do more reps, but you're still taking it to that 1 to 2 reps short of failure. So you would then, in this case, just continue to add reps and see your progressive overload through the lens of reps. And then at a certain point, then maybe you're able to add weight to bring the reps down. So let's say the rep range you were training in was 6 to 10, and you could do, maybe this was curls, you could do 20s for sets of six, but 25s were too much. Well, you would continue to work with the 20s until you got 10 reps. And then maybe you could get 5 or 6 reps with the 25s. So that's how you would approach that. Just keep going with the reps. And if you still couldn't do the 25s, then go past 10 reps, 11 reps, 12 reps. Ultimately, if you're getting to that level of set intensity, that level of tension that you get near failure, you have the same stimulus. It's obviously just less efficient, but it's the same stimulus. Um, Okay, is LOYT adaptable to at home with barbells, dumbbells, and bands? Okay, so a commercial gym is not required. We have a lot of people that train at home. I would say that's what we have listed as the bare minimum is barbells, dumbbells, a bench, obviously, and bands. I would just say, and I know there's a lot of people that in our group that still do that. It's the bare minimum. So therefore, there's compromises that come with that. I will say that makes for the hellacious leg workouts because you're relegated to all the hardest movements, single leg work, right? Like, what do you're doing there's no machines there, so you're never hack squatting or leg pressing. It's always like a split squat, a Bulgarian squat, lunges. You're doing 2 sets for one. Super effective, super doable, but super difficult, right? So it's more challenging at home with that for lower body. And then a large compromise, honestly, is bands. You can use bands, of course, but how do you track progressively overload? So how do you track progressive overload and how do you be motivated by the progress you make on bands, right? They're not motivating. And that's a large part of things. How do you gear up for a new PR with bands? So um, I think, if you're serious about training for life, then over time, you are looking to try to build a home gym. And I used to say that a good gym at home was built around a power rack. I now believe it's built around a cable system and there's some really affordable ones these days as well. because they're just so versatile. There's so much versatility with cables that you don't get from anything else. And back training as well. Think about back training. Back training in the gym when you're training lats, pull downs, rows. You can't really do any of that. You can with bands, you can, but again, you need to consistently move your anchor point, have various levels of tension in your bands, and people, and you this is totally doable. But I find that people get frustrated with those accommodations, right? So let's take leg extensions, for example. You got to band up for that. Single leg banded is the only way for you to do a leg extension. And every good lower body program needs a leg extension. It's the only exercise that trains one of those quad muscles. Leg curls. You can't do hamstrings without doing a leg curl variation. So you're doing a banded or dumbbell substitution MacGyvered movement for that exercise. Totally doable, not as fun, right? So I find just a commercial gym just you know, is not definitely not a requirement. We don't train in one, but we have a really, really well equipped home gym. Okay, thanks, Aim, for putting that in there. Uh yes, tomorrow is the next session. Amy's doing in the kitchen and she's coming heavy-handed. So I don't think it's a different link, right? Yeah, you know.
We'll send out an email because we'll send out a replay tomorrow morning. We won't tonight because we are early birds. I mean, we go to bed early, but tomorrow morning we'll send out the replay and then the link for, tomorrow night.
Yeah, cool. Well, that's it for day one in the gym. I thought I would do this in 30 minutes, but I guess it was a lot more than I thought it was. So, um, thanks for everyone that stayed for the whole thing and to make sure that you go and get those 3 workouts and, you know, um, really interested in your feedback. And if you want to join our next group or have any questions about any of the training stuff, I could even, or if you even want a screenshot of that one page where I have it's kind of all the training variables or the programming variables outside of the one I talked about with exercise choice that you would look at and say, okay, does my program that I'm building adhere to these components? If so, I'm on the right track, not perfect maybe, but you're definitely on the right track. So, all right. Good night. Good night. See you guys tomorrow. Thanks for being here. Uh, okay. I'm saying bye now. Thanks for everybody being here. You can all go now.